I like your shirt too. Look at that.
Yeah, I think we're a little set up there matching it, right?
That's too good, man.
Yeah,
That is amazing.
Angle, that's how it is.
I love it. Hi.
All right, so
Carter's getting used to Zoom too, huh?
yeah, man, he's like always in the. So it's really, that's what I say, you know, not making any light of the situation at all. You know, it's really devastating, right? In Illinois, we've had about what is Chicago? I know we're almost at 800 deaths, and I kind of forget what the total in the state is right now.
Yeah.
So not to make light of the pandemic and the crushing impact it's having, but brother, you and I, we're soulmates when it comes to finding silver linings in bad things, man. And that, you know, that's why I love your attitude. And so, yeah, that's one, man, is getting a chance to, you know, we always talk about work-life balance.
Mm-hmm.
And so working from home, I think a lot of us, you know, we've got loved ones in the background of all kind of things that you got going on, meeting. It's not just kids, right? You might be in a meeting and, you know, you might be over at your folks' house or something, and Pops walks past in the background of a Zoom call. Or he gives you, you know, I've heard people be on a call and they'll have a parent give them a tip from another room, and it's like, Mom, I'm in the middle of meetings.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of stuff is really cool because, you know, we condition ourselves so much that business is separate from personal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that could also be one of the downfalls of America, right? Is that there's not enough personal in how we do business.
Totally agree. I totally agree with you. And I think I just can't get over it. Carter's adorable. Well done. But I agree with you. I think I toy with the idea of work-life balance all the time. And I forget who it was, but someone was talking the other day about there's some places where that's got to be absolutely true. If you're in finance and you are just straight up grinding whatever for however long the market is open and whatever, maybe that doesn't transfer over into your family life, and perhaps that's appropriate. But like you and I, we're in a people business anyway. So when I think of work-life balance, like some of the stuff that we do is like laborious, you know, it's hard. You mentioned that you were up till like 2:30 last night doing work. You know, that's fine. But to be able to share our work or our profession with the people that we care about, so that it's almost like work's over here, life is over here, to blend those in a healthy way. If we could ever get to that point, that would be a really great place. And it looks like you two are knocking it out of the park right now.
Yeah. And so that's, you know, I will say, man, that's been a long-standing benefit to having Lost Boyz as a part of my life. And then eventually moving into where it's now become, you know, my primary livelihood. I've always had my family incorporated in my business when it comes to that. You know, my wife was the impetus for the start of it. You know, she got me into coaching, so it started there. And, you know, kind of being my support, my backbone, getting it off the ground. And then my kids were always tied into it. So, you know, when I'm recruiting players and getting started, I'm like, okay, I got daughters. My son ain't ready, but hey, girls, you want to play baseball? So, you know, started out with my daughters and, you know, still finding ways for my oldest to be connected. She really wasn't into athletics. And, but she found a way to be involved and connected still over the years. And of course, you know, Manny has come up through it. And so now, you know, looking forward to Carter kind of coming up through it, getting introduced to baseball and to, you know, the network that I have. And so, yeah, my family's been central and key to Lost Boyz and to its growth and to just, quite frankly, how I feel about it, right? I think it strengthened my commitment, and so it's harder to walk away from it on any given day, knowing how I've tied my family in. And so then that helped me develop a healthy, my phone is a little distant.
You're right.
Hold on, my Zoom kicked out. My screen, oh, there we go. So it helps me to have a healthy appreciation for other people that are involved, right? And kids that are involved. So it strengthens my commitment. I can't just drop things or walk away. You know, I've always got to make sure it works out. Like, same with high school softball, right? So, you know, this is my 4th year coaching at Perspective Leadership Academy. And, well, not academy, but Perspective Leadership. And, academy. And anyway, I've brought a lot of girls over to the high school that have come through Lost Boyz, you know, during secondary school. And so getting to high school, they come on over to play for me. So, you know, if I ever feel like, well, I just want to be done with this, I always have to think about those girls. And I'm like, yo, you know, I had girls come over here because I was coaching, so I can't just say tomorrow I don't want to coach high school anymore. So I'm kind of stuck in this commitment until those girls pass through.
Yeah. It's interesting that you bring that up, though, because it's like you've got to take care of you. You know, that much is true. But and I'll tell you that this is it's not a dilemma. It's like a really good, if you call it a dilemma, it's a really good one. Because like I sometimes find myself, I think, in situations like that also. Like, it's such a human business, and if you're in it for the right reasons, then, you know, there's never a good time. Like when I went back to grad school, when I went out to Boston, I think right before I met you, it was like, well, I don't want to leave the seniors. You know, I was working at a high school, and I was like, I don't want to leave these seniors behind. They're about to go into their last year. And my mentor, Randy Obremt, who I hope you will meet someday. He's just a good man. He essentially, he explained to me, like, there's never a good time. If you care about what you're doing and if you care about the people that you're doing it with, there's never a good time to leave or shift or adjust. But there's a good way to do it, if that makes sense. So I feel that I guess dilemma or concern, not wanting to leave the people that you've recruited there behind, but you're doing so much good work. Well, and maybe, so we had, for people who are tuning into this but didn't hear last time, I thought we had a great conversation last time, and then I know it was me. I messed something up on the recording. We get to talk again, which is good. But give for people who don't know the history, can you give us a little bit about Lost Boyz and all the good work that you're doing?
Yeah, sure. You know, I love to talk about that history. So, organization we started in 2008 in South Shore, and it was kind of in response to increasing gun violence in the neighborhood. So, just thinking and reflecting on my own life, and I'm like, yo, what's one of the best ways to respond to this? And, you know, one of the best disruptors is sports. And so baseball in particular, because it just happened to be the way that it was the circumstances surrounding the situation and how it played out. I was already, you know, little league coach, and this guy was folding the league, and then we had this like traumatic incident involving some people we didn't know coming across the field and guns and just crazy madness. And so the kids really weren't impacted in a major way. They seemed very desensitized. So it became kind of the impetus to keep going, right, and coaching. And
well,
so I had
tell
to
me about that
form
one more
my
time. That's such an interesting part of the story. When you said that was wasn't that one of the things that like concerned you? Was not even that something happened, but that you saw how that people were desensitized to it, meaning that it is.
And I actually had a really weird flashback because I actually went to high school for a little while in that park that you all come out to with us at Rosenblum. Yeah. So now when you come, you see this new multi-million-dollar international baccalaureate high school that buses in students from all around the city and is 60% selective service, right? And it's very hard to get into it from the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And these kids are really, really smart that come there. Well, that wasn't the same 20-something years ago. Yeah. It was, you know, another whole building sitting where our Turf Diamond is, and it was a building down on the Big Diamond on the 75th Street side. So those two buildings, plus the third building across the street, these buildings made, well, there was one building on this side and one across the street. Those two buildings made the old school. Back then, South Shore was a notorious high school in the 90s. It flip-flopped a lot, right? When it was created, it was in the 40s or 30s, and so the community wasn't even African-American then, so it was, you know, totally different population in the community when those schools were built. But anyway, I had an incident myself when I was a junior in high school, senior. And I ended up transferring, but it was after football practice and, you know, some guys on the team, we were all in like different gangs. And so that seemed to be a problem. And some of my teammates, we could elevate beyond that, but some of us couldn't because off the field, we had to go back to the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And so alliances meant a lot back in the neighborhood off the field, right? So anyway, one of the practices I'm leaving and these guys are like planning to get me. And some of them are my very own teammates. And, you know, they got their guys coming. So I'm, you know, practice is wrapping up and I'm starting to see people. And these people are, you know, filling up the perimeter of the football field. So there's guys on every side, like, you know, in a line like that, you know, and nobody comes to watch our practice. Now, all of a sudden we got like 25 guys out here watching the practice. Yeah. And so I'm knowing right then I'm about to get my ass whooped. So I'm like, I go tell the coach, and one of my teammates gave me the heads up. He said, hey, man, don't go in that locker room. These guys are going to jump you and bring you out to these guys that are on the team. And so I told my head coach, can you give me a ride home? These guys came up here to jump me, you know, such and such on the team told me, and there's a couple of guys on the team that are setting me up. And he, you know, he's from down south. He's an older guy. And so he talks with that southern twang. Oh, yeah, boy, you're going to be all right. Just go ahead and get on home. Man. Get on down there. I'll see you tomorrow. And he drives off on me in his van, man, and he leaves me standing in the smoke. And so the smoke clears, Jimmy, and what do I see? Those 25 guys. So I start walking to the locker room, pretending like I'm going to go in. And what I did was I got to the locker room, and I dropped my helmet and my helmet I still had on. I dropped my helmet and shoulder pads. You know how you carry them. Yep. And I still had on my pants and my cleats. And, you know, a couple of my boys were trying to come down to get me, but a lot of these guys were holding them at bay, like a couple of blocks off. So I was solo. And I ended up running. I took off running as these guys were following me. And I started running to a 79th Street South because I knew I had family up there. And I knew because of the gang dynamics, these guys couldn't follow me up there. So I knew it was a safe zone once I made it. And so I'm running, dude, and I'm telling you, I'm hearing bullets flying through trees. They're shooting at me. I'm running in cleats. And so I make it to 79th, though, safely unharmed. And everything like I predicted, they didn't help. But, dude, I think out of all of the things, the traumas that I've experienced in my life, that was probably one of the most hurtful because there was an elder who I looked up to as an authority, as a coach, who had a responsibility to protect me, and he did not take my threat serious, and he left me way vulnerable. God bless you. God bless you. And so that impacted me so deep, dude. When that happened with the kids that year and I was coaching and them guys ran across that field with that gun, I had a flashback. You know, these kids weren't in distress because they weren't the object of those people's vilification. They weren't the target. So they didn't feel as being the target, right? But all of that stuff just came flooding back to me at one time because instantly now the roles were reversed. I was the coach. Although these kids weren't the target, you know, my concern was for them more than it was for myself at that moment. You feel me? And so when that situation was over and everything was okay, I was like, yo, this is just one of many that they have already experienced and will probably experience more in life. And at that very moment, it was just like an epiphany. I was like, yo, I want to be that coach that does something different than what Coach Brown did to me in 1991 and left me standing here. So I think that was really it, dude. And I think that is what sticks with me the most. Subconsciously. And that's what drives me is like how powerful coaches are and the roles that we play in youth lives, right? All of us as men, you and I and your staff and my staff, we can all, and you've done this all the time. You've done these campaigns where Coaches for Kindness have shouted out coaches that were inspiring in their life. So I've commented on that with you on social, and I've had, shouted out Coach Donovan Rose down at Hampton University, my football coach, one of my college football coaches. Good guys like that who I had a more positive experience with, somebody who saw me kind of self-destructing within the college environment while I was young, trying to deal with all of the pressures of college and playing ball and going to school and being out of state. And he was concerned. He didn't just see me as a commodity on the field. And so it was coaches like that, where I had these great experiences and I knew they had impacts. And here I am 44 years old now, and I'm talking about something when I was 19 years old. And I can still tell you that man's name. I can tell you where he works. I can tell you all types of things about his life because I've been concerned enough to continue to follow him, right, and to try to communicate. And so that's the thing about coaches and those long-lasting relationships. And sometimes, you can never replace a parent, but to me, a coach is like the next best thing, right? There are people that players confide in when they can't even talk to their own parents. Players are able to come to coaches and talk about really, really sensitive and personal things, whether it's their sexuality, whatever it may be. That you can confide in a coach and get usually sound advice or just, non-judgmental support, which is most times what I think people are looking for. And oftentimes the barriers to why young people don't confide in their parents, because it's our nature as parents to judge situations for our children and things. Right. So, it's hard to be non-judgmental as a parent with your kid when they're coming to you about something about their life. So you rather omit it oftentimes. Well, I know I did, right? I didn't want to tell my parents about something. And some things I want to have a conversation about, and they just weren't prepared to have those kind of conversations for whatever reason. And so I was able to confide and find a place to have those conversations with coaches.
I think what you're saying is so meaningful. People need to recognize it. And that's at the heart of a lot of the Good Athlete Project work, is like, that was our jumping off point, really was. And I think I've told you this, like, I was sitting in a classroom going through this is going to sound high level. It's pretty basic though, but like going through the attention and retention networks of the brain. It was a neuroscience class in grad school. So what makes the brain pay attention and what makes you retain information. And it was almost like a bullet point of things happening in sports. It was novelty. It was group dynamics. It was powerful mentorship. It was all these different things, right? And what became clear after that were two things. One is whoever the leader in learning environment is, man, what a powerful position that would be. So here we have this state where the human brain is especially attentive and retentive. It's perked up and paying attention, and it's retaining the information that's coming in. The leader in that space is going to be a meaningful one. So that was sort of the scene set. But then the very next step was recognizing that power and positive impact aren't the same thing. Meaning, right, going to what you're saying, like, you can be there are stories like that, and it sounds like you have people on both sides. I think a lot of people have those stories, like a story of sports done well and coaches who have done really well and been meaningful, and then they have the flip side, which is sports that have gone not so well and coaches that have been, use whatever term you want, but minimally not as supportive as they would have liked, minimally, but in some cases really. I hesitate to use the word toxic because I think it's sometimes overused, but a coach could certainly point you in a bad direction, because power absolutely does not mean positive impact. But if you can harness the power of sports in the way that you all are doing, then you're onto something really special.
Right.
So so that's that was the jumping off point. That's the motivation. And so with Lost Boyz, just so people know, you're using the reason that we were so attracted in the first place and have been grateful for our relationship and partnership and all that is you kids walk in the door for baseball and softball, but when they're in the door, there's a lot of other stuff going on. It's academics, it's relationships, it's civic engagement. It is all the, I know you do some finance work with kids, like how to balance checkbooks and open a bank account and stuff like that. Is that an accurate description? So you're teaching all areas of life, but using baseball and softball as the platform. Is that fair?
Yep, that was very fair, Jimmy. That's absolutely it. And I think in some ways, my personal goal, I love the high level stuff like you, right? So you and I and Coach Alex, we can all get on a conversation and start talking about, program goals, objectives, metrics. We can start talking all this MEL stuff. And so, M&E stuff. So we love it, right? But also, I found this more, that's the right word I want to use for it, kind of this more basic level, implementation level that doesn't have all of those high-end tentacles to it, right? So, example, just a basic Little League baseball team. It has very basic goals. It's very loosely bound. Nothing is super definitive in terms of, how you're looking at it, what you expect out of it, what actually is going into it down to a recipe.
Yeah.
And so this other end, like from an academia perspective, which is, that higher level end, I think that we're looking at, it's been a personal goal for me to marry those two.
No doubt. That's
to
right.
have some, perfect intersectionality between this basic kind of primal part of us, just the sporting part, the competitive part, the part that just wants you to get out there and play ball, whatever kind of ball it is,
right?
Or wrestle or skate or whatever you do, lift, power lift, whatever it is, this primal thing in us that puts us out there to enjoy doing it and to compete, to really marry that with the higher end, the academia end. And so that's what I often saw that was lacking in sports, was also this way to show this connectivity with regular things in life with sports. And so that's what we tried to do, was a lot of it, try to model it explicitly and define it explicitly. And sometimes that's challenging, right? Because some stuff, what's the matter? Hey, Carter. Some stuff, it's so qualitative, it's hard to put a label on it, put a number on it,
totally.
Tag it, right? So a great example is that story I think I just told, right? If we were to analyze that story and the other story of the two stories, if we analyzed them together, I'm sure we could, from an academia perspective, research, we could make some causality. We could find some correlation and causality there, right? It just in those stories. Some of the things in it, though, still, hey, baby, I don't know how to capture or put a tag on it, a label. That feeling, for example, that feeling that drives me to take that old experience and to create the new experience. I can't just think of a single word or a way to measure that or you understand what I'm trying to say, Jimmy? Like
100%.
How much of it is,
I do.
How much of it was in me 5 years ago? How much of it is it in me now at the 11-year mark?
Right.
Or 12-year mark? Now this is kind of the 12-year mark coming up. How much of it is going to be in me at the 20-year mark? Does it dissipate? Does it stay the same? Does it get stronger? I don't even know what the it is to measure, because I don't have a name for it. Some people will call it passion. Some people will call it all kind of things, but I don't have a single word or a way to define it, because it's a little bit of all of that.
It is a little bit of all of that, and it's probably an evolving process. I think you're exactly right. And I think that's what makes, for me, it's what makes things like coaching and education and any sort of human business so meaningful, because there's this variable there that is completely unaccounted for. You can't account for it. It's like, I love that. Well, there you go. Like there's no, there's no exact script to follow to make a father-son relationship or a coaching relationship. There's no exact script to follow to do it well. There's no absolute quote right. There are thoughtful processes. There's thoughtful ways. There's passion. There's like the reason you got into it, all that stuff. But it's really, when people talk about like the magic of these experiences, they refer to it as magic because there's no way to quantify it. I think we may even, I'm thinking back to when you guys were on your, at the previous facility. Where was that one? You know the one I'm talking about?
Yeah, 75th and Phillips. That's the Rebecca Crown.
Phillips, that's right. When we were in a room over there, talking about like, how do you measure character? Sports improve character, but how? What exactly does that mean? These are sort of abstract ideas. You can say, well, maybe someone's got a better growth mindset, or they're more resilient, or they're whatever. But you'd be trying to name something. And we always do this. I think it's important to try to name things in order to study them, but it's also important to have the humility to recognize that we can never really name the magic of a human-to-human interaction in any way that would do it justice. And that is what I think you all do well, and it's probably part of you. It's like you want to back your processes with plenty of research, but the implementation is a huge part of that is you. It's it's LaVonte. It's not something from a textbook, So that's the good and bad part about it.
That's perfectly said. Yeah, that's perfectly said. All of it, right? And so then that's in terms of continuity of service and the future of the organization, because there's a reality. I can't do it forever. Mm-hmm. And some of the people that are with me, like Coach Smith, they can't do it forever. But how do we, as Frederick Douglass said, there's a famous quote, and I love it, and forgive me if I butcher it here, but I believe it goes, it is easier to build strong children than to repair a broken man.
Wow.
And so that sits with me. And the concept of that entire quote has so much meaning when I dissect it. And then I juxtapose against it who the hell said it in the first place and what that person means to me. So make no qualms about it. Frederick Douglass is one of my all-time idols in terms of people that I've studied and, whose lives I try to mimic in different ways, in modern day, right? Different challenges, different mindsets within populations, but same issue, same issues. So, and so that's always on my mind. And so that's part of what I'm doing, or we're doing, is trying to train some of these young people who are going to stay and stick to this community. Everybody's not going to stay. People grow up and leave their community. Some people stay. I don't have the numbers or the research which shows, like what the ratios or percentages are of people that stay home after they grow up in their own community. But those that do, we want them to be around and come back and be a part of this. And so that's why we're taking young folks and introducing them to the workforce and then introducing them to occupations around sports, specifically baseball, and introducing them to entrepreneurship, and not just introducing them, actually, doing something, right? So I'm really excited. This is the first year that we've been wanting to do it for years. And so we finally moneyed up, and we're at a place where we're now, we're creating our first micro enterprise. So basically what it is some kind of sports related business, community-based, starting out, that the teams will own. So each year a cohort will create a new business. And hopefully that's going to continue. We'll see what the success of this first one is like. So it's all of the girls that the older girls, Tiara and Marilyn and Brianna and Nakasha and Nyasha. So all of the girls have been around for a few years. They're going to create a mobile food truck.
Wow.
So we've already secured the seed capital. So they've got right now $18,000 to start with, and they raised the majority of that themselves in an ongoing fundraiser last year. So the next group will do the same thing and so forth. And then some of them, in addition to that, they're still learning how to be junior coaches. So all of those girls I just named, out of all of them, let's see, I think 2 or 3 of them are junior coaches. One is a junior umpire. One is an executive scheduler. So these are the occupations that we're training them in, but yet they're also business owners. They each own a percentage of this mobile food truck they're going to start.
Unbelievable.
Now, how the hell do you measure all of that, brother? I mean, I got stuff in place. It's written out in the program. I'm doing my best to try to define everything the way according to SMART, right?
Yeah.
And am I accurate? I don't know. Do I hope I am? Could I pull data and give it to a social science researcher and they shred it and say, oh man, yeah, they probably could. But could I also keep it and package it and give it to a donor or, to whomever to show what we've done, and they'll look at it and say, oh, this is magnificent. So it's all abstract, man, like you said, but
it's
at the end of the day, what matters is, did we impact those kids' lives in a positive way? That's the bottom line. What did we change about their lives? What trajectory did we put them on? I can definitively say a couple of years from now, I know I can say we helped kids get into college and play ball. We helped kids become business owners. We helped kids get certified and into new occupational areas. I know I can say that. I know we can say
those are major impacts. Like, just think about those 3 things, like the life-changing. And you get to this point where you're like, it's almost like now, and I want to pick my words carefully here, but people should, if people are getting money, like grants and stuff like that, sure, you got to prove it, the grant, like that it was worth it to the people who donated. That's fair, but within reason. What you just said, if someone doesn't see the value of that, then no number could change it. You know what I mean? Like we sent a kid off to college to play baseball when maybe that wasn't on the cards in that person's life had we not entered that person's life. Like, are you kidding?
Exactly.
Like, you don't need a number for that. Like, you either get that as a human being or not. And it's funny because we always talk about there's 2 things to measure: results and relationships. And and I think probably our work, I think the really good stuff of the sort of work that we do together in this world is at the intersection. It's we had this many kids, we did this much stuff, we provided this, and this for them. We sent X amount of kids to college, X amount of kids to the workforce, whatever. And here's some quotes from families who say their lives or their kids have been positively affected by that. That's the, and to anyone who's considering getting into this work, I think that's one of the early bits of advice we give to people is collect that stuff. If you get a nice email from a parent, it may seem sort of like self-aggrandizing, but save it.
Right.
Eventually, it was meaningful. The kids know it was meaningful. The parents know it was meaningful. But at some point, you might be asked to prove it, and things like that go a long way. Like I don't want to. Your story is just getting me sort of riled up over here. I can't wait to get back to working with kids. That's where I'm at right now, hearing your story, because like you can't, from our side of work, it's like I can tell you how many people we impact over the course of a year. In terms of, and we can break down kids, coaches, teachers, and professionals. We can say that, but it's a number. What I can't tell anyone is what it feels like to have like a mom come up to you in tears because their kid was going down a path that they were really sort of afraid of. Like whether it's like mental health or whatever it was, the case in particular that I'm thinking of is like they weren't sure what was going to happen to their kid, and like the unbelievable real gratitude of that a mom like sort of expresses because of the impact you've had on the life of their kid. There's no number for that. But when you can tell that story alongside whatever the hard numbers you have, now hopefully people are starting to see the value of stuff like that. Anyway, I didn't mean to go down that path.
Man, You actually, man, dude, I'm connecting with you on that, and I'm getting pumped too because, like, I'm just thinking, I just like envision in my mind. It's kind of a radical thought here, but ride with me, and viewers too, right? So you and I, you work kind of across the board, but a lot of your specialty, your core area, your home, if you will, we're kind of on two different ends of the spectrum in terms of population, right? Population served. And what those populations.
Yeah. Just so you know, my day job, absolutely. The Good Athlete Project, far more wide ranging. But yes, I hear what you're saying. Yeah. I lost your audio.
Okay, there we go.
You hear me now? Yep.
All right, so let's look at like some of the populations you serve, right? Maybe within the high school stuff too.
Sure.
Different life conditions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Different circumstances. However, like you said, there's still the beauty is where we find this intersectionality between our work, right? There's still this way. In other words, our kids may suffer more from a lack in their social framework, right? Mm-hmm. So our kids don't come from high household income, so therefore they have all of these inequities in terms of access to things and yada, 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 right?
Totally.
And so maybe some of your population has, this different set of life circumstances. And they do. They have this stuff, this nice framework in life. They have access to this, to wealth, which drives access to other things, right? And so, but the world tends to think, like my community may think more about the community you're serving there. Oh, they're okay. They don't have problems. They got money. They got everything they need. No, like you said, you just mentioned something right there. That, your kids, some of the kids you serve in that area, they may lack more in the social emotional learning area, right? And so that's a need though that you're able to address through the use of sport, through that connection and relationship with a coach, and then you just tap into something somewhere with them, and it opens up. And so, and I'm saying that because I don't know, somewhere in my brain also is this piece that sticks about poverty in sports, mm-hmm. right? And so I don't always want people to look at it in that framework, and that it's the power of sport is way beyond your economic condition. You can have the best economic conditions in the world, and you can have some other issues, social emotional things, right? And sport can still be that great. What am I thinking of, Jim? Here,
I'm losing your audio.
Wait, hold on. You got me again?
I got you.
Okay, yeah, Frank was calling and messed up my call. But I was saying, and sport can just be that saving grace,
It's a connector.
I have a great admiration for the work that you all do and the various populations, kind of your day job population that you work with, and then that broader spectrum that Good Athlete works with, and so at the bare core of it, we have kindred spirits about the power of sport and just what you're saying here. So you get me pumped up again, Jimmy.
Well, it's good. It's good to get excited about this stuff because I agree with you. I think you're spot on. I think, yes, like my day job, I feel super privileged to work at a really high achieving high school with a lot of resources for sure. They're great people. They're great kids. The concerns are different. But the unifying concept is this: we are these embodied human beings who like to play and like a community, and then that they like to compete. And like the nature of sport transcends so much. Like, and that's why I think when we first started with the Good Athlete Project, and I think probably one of the things we connected when we first met, how many years ago, was to think that you hear all the time sports teach life lessons, and I'm always skeptical of that. because my thought is sports teach life lessons if you use sports as a platform to teach life lessons, but it's not happening automatically. And that is special because that goes place to place. And when you say like, what sort of life lessons do you want to teach? That's also important. So for example, when we are on the north side of Chicago versus the south side of Chicago versus the west side of Chicago versus in the, down by the big buildings, every location is different. Then when we go out to California, different. Colorado, different. Boston, different. Texas, different. And you think those are different? Take a trip down to Haiti. You know what I'm saying? Like different in ways that you could never anticipate or predict, right? We have these ideas of what things could and should look like. But the truth is every situation is wildly different. So the question becomes, well, what's the same? And if you start looking at people and then like the things that people like to do, sports are an incredible bridge from location to location. And if you start there, like you said, if you strip it down to the core of it, now you're talking about real potential because you're talking to a human being, an environment that human being wants to be in. And then we say this all the time, meet people where they are to take them where they need to be or want to be. So, but if you can meet people where they are first, I think that that's the real special part of using sports in the way that you and I are trying to do it. Because I think too often what we see are people who would go into a place and say, no, look, this is how it's got to be done. You know what I mean? Like this is what it should look like and blah, blah, blah. It's not like that. You can come in with some core concepts and some well-researched methods, but implementation is the only thing that matters. If people are not receptive to your ideas and if you don't meet people where they are, wherever that might be, then then I think whatever good idea you have is going to fall flat. And it's a simple, think about you. Had that not happened to you in high school, meet people where they are, where you are that's shifted. So where you are also includes like your life experience, like what you've been through and all that stuff. So it's deep and meaningful work. It's complex. And that maybe brings us back to that idea we were talking about, which is like, there's no, it's really hard to write a script for this. In fact, let me pull up. I just sent something out yesterday. I was listening to a podcast. Shoot, what was it? Essentially, it's this coach, Brett Bartholomew, and he was, he made this comment. He's like, coaches should make sure that you don't get addicted to a script, a template, your bullet points. Don't get too obsessed with that, because the truth is coaching is improv always. It's always, you always got to be able to adapt. So having your anchor ideas is good, but assuming that that's going to work every time for every kid, that would be pretty limiting, I would say.
Right.
So.
No doubt.
I love this image that's happening right now, by the way.
Yeah, he's kind of conked out on us for his morning nap.
I love it. Okay, I'm trying to think of some of the good stuff that we got into the last time. Okay, you were drinking your coffee. These are a couple things that we got to do. What was the coffee, the local coffee shop you want to give a shout out to?
Oh, last week, yes, South Shore Brew.
South Shore Brew.
Yeah, that's our spot.
And I got my guys at Gallery Cafe again. Good people.
Gallery.
They are good people. Eugene over there, Billy, the whole crew. So I think here's what I think we got to do. We have to record the next episode of this Coffee with a Coach. Let's do two more. Let's do one at Gallery, one at South Shore Brew. How do you feel about that? Once we can be sort of live and in person again.
Bet it up. That sounds like a plan.
I like it. And I guess because we're at our time and because Carter has decided that he's got places to be, namely asleep, I guess I would just thank you publicly for all that you do for kids. We're lucky to see it firsthand and super grateful to be part of it in whatever small way we can. So I'm grateful for your work, man.
Yeah, man, you're always so modest, man. I appreciate you, Jim. You've been a good athlete. It's been a big part of Lost Boyz development and growth over the last few years, man. So I'm just appreciative to met you wonderful group of guys and gals over there, and shout out to who was our tutor this year in Winter Clinic, Michelle. Shout out to Michelle.
Oh, Michelle came. Yeah. She's great. I'll tell you, say hi.
Yeah.
We have, and like you said, growth. I'm excited because I'm so convinced about you, like between me and you, like our alignment and the way we prioritize things and people that use the word growth. I'm excited to see. I'm excited to look back on this conversation. This is going on YouTube. I'll be excited to double back on this conversation a few years from now, and just be grateful for all the growth that's happened and how far we've come. I think it's meaningful stuff, man.
Agreed, brother. Well stated.
Well, I hope you can sort of knock out and take a nap alongside your son there. That is, I think you've earned it.
Yeah, you know what? I might try to squeeze one in, but then again, you know what? No, I can't. I got spring training today with the baby bandits, so I got to kind of jump in there and see how the coaches are doing. So we'll be introducing them